What fan theory do you 100% accept as true? Kevin Malone, if not actually a genius, is certainly much smarter than he lets on. Clearly he's lazy, and gluttonous, and blah blah blah, but after the merger with Stamford, and it's revealed that Martin had served time, Kevin realizes that he needs to give plausible deniability to any sort of financial maleficence that the accountants have been doing, and flannerizes himself in front of the camera. Occasionally he slips up and reveals himself to be something a math genius, and has to backtrack, and play it off as some kind of food-based idiot savant. It's how he was able to afford ownership of the bar at the end of the series. I'm sure he made a bit just cashing in all those free drinks, but actually enough to buy a bar. I don't believe it. There's a theory I read that the Kelvin number he used in accounting was solely so he can embezzle funds out of Dunder Mifflin while keeping up his dumbass persona. Then he used said money after he was fired to buy the bar and made that free drink story to cover it all up since he knew that the documentary crew would come back for a reunion. Not sure if this counts, but Donkey from Shrek being one of the kids from Pinocchio who turned into a donkey is pretty mind-blowing. The reason each It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia episode starts with a date and time is because they're all testifying against each other in court. Oh shit, it's definitely against Dennis. The Empire Strikes Back, Admiral Ozzel is a rebel spy. Everything Ozzel does in his brief bits of screen time is to the detriment of the Empire. When the probe droid finds the rebel shield generator, Ozzel tries to dismiss it as smugglers before Pete speaks out of turn and gets Vader involved. Later, Ozzel orders the fleet out of hyperspace too quickly, giving the rebels plenty of time to activate the aforementioned shield generator that Ozzel knew about. Clumsy as he is, stupid, a rebel sympathizer who gave his life to give the Alliance as much time to evacuate their base as possible? I side on the latter. Thank you. I thought I was the only one who picked up on this. He has no legitimate reason for deflecting suspicion away from Hoth unless he is a spy. It is utterly irrelevant to his position if a junior officer raises a bad idea to the boss against his own judgment, to say nothing of it being hazardous to question said boss when he's off on one of his headstrong impulses. Ozzel is a hero of the rebellion. Beavis and Butthead have fetal alcohol syndrome. Miguel and Tulio may not be gods, but the armadillo that follows them around absolutely is. It's just helping them out because they saved it from being eaten. Bebo. I agree. When the volcano is going off he is chasing a butterfly, and then when Tulio yells stop, Bebo stops chasing the butterfly as well. It even keeps cutting to Bebo during their conversation. Another one is his ability to walk on walls and change direction mid-air during the game. And him accidentally helping come up with a plan for the boat at the end. Amongst other things. That Loki was controlled by the Tesseract more than he let on. His eyes glowed multiple times and he shed a tear when Thor tried to talk sense into him. Fits with mythology Loki a bit better where he's a troublemaker, and a bit twisted, but isn't evil. If anything, he suffers from affluenza where he doesn't understand that other people face real consequences whereas he doesn't because he's a god. It also allows them to hand-wave his turn to good. In Disney's Ratatouille, the old lady in the beginning of the movie living in the house next to the river is the food critic, Aunt Inigo's mother. In the flashback scene where he eats the ratatouille you can see similarities of the house from the beginning, her face and I think the bridge. That explains Remy being able to make the ratatouille that tasted exactly like his mother used to make. Imagine Aunt Inigo taking his mother to his new favorite restaurant and introducing her to the chef. The Jetsons and the Flintstones are living at the same time in a dystopian future where the haves live above the clouds and the have-nots are stuck on a wasted earth. The signs include that Flintstones celebrate things like Christmas and other holidays which doesn't make sense and the Great Gazoo alien appears in both series. Gazoo is in the Jetsons? The town from Footloose is the same town from Tremors. The ban on dancing wasn't a puritanical attempt to control the youth. The town elders were aware of the graboid threat, and banned dancing out of the fear that it would cause rhythmic vibrations waking up the creatures sleeping below the town. Kevin Bacon's character in Footloose stayed in the town, growing up to be his character in Tremors, at which point he has to try and contain the danger he inadvertently released. There was so many problems with this but, man, that's hilarious. As a massive Tremors fan this made me laugh. Thanks for sharing. James Bond's primary purpose is to be a distraction to keep attention off the spies who actually spy. Villains and other spies know him, he rarely takes an alias, he makes his presence known early on and keeps messing up operations for the villains, But other spies have already infiltrated their ranks and work while Bond does as much visible damage as possible to keep the others safe. Little late to the game, but the theory is that the Kyber crystal in Luke's green lightsaber is the same one from Qui-Gon Jinn's. After Kenobi defeats Darth Maul with his master's lightsaber, he would have kept it as a keepsake, despite rebuilding his own saber. It's likely he would have retrieved it and kept it with him after the Order 66 attack. After the Empire takes over, they destroy all artifacts and memory of the Jedi in their purge of changing the history, and most Kyber crystals go towards powering the Death Star. Because of this, any lightsaber crystal would have been very difficult for Luke to find after he loses the Skywalker saber. But we know he returns to Tatooine to complete his new lightsaber, likely returning to Ben Kenobi's home for components, where he would have found Qui-Gon Jinn's lightsaber and recycled its crystal. I vaguely remember reading, it might have been Shadows of the Empire, come to think of it, that Luke did go back to Ben's hut to study and get supplies. This makes a lot of sense. Red Alert 1's Allied victory results in the Red Alert 2/3 universe. Red Alert 1's Soviet victory leads to the Tiberium universe. Debunked by the writers themselves, but that's how it'll always be for me. The monsters in Courage the Cowardly Dog are regular people but seem monsters from Courage's perspective, since he's cowardly. Also, they live in the middle of nowhere because his owners never take him out, so that's how he views the world. Glinda dropped Dorothy's house on the Wicked Witch of the East, not the tornado, and uses her to gain control of Oz. One of the first things Glinda tells Dorothy is that she killed the witch. They praise her so she'll accept it, and when the Witch of the West comes along, who killed her sister? Dorothy. Glinda then puts the ruby slippers on Dorothy's feet but does not tell her that she can use them to go home. Instead, she sends Dorothy to Oz in possession of objects that a witch would murder her for. Dorothy, being forced into a situation where her only salvation is Oz and her worst enemy is the Queen, inadvertently exposes the Wizard of Oz as a fraud and murders the Witch of the West. Now, who's left to rule Oz? Glinda fucking Witch of the North. She used Dorothy as an expendable pawn to gain control of Oz without having to leave her bubble. And when Dorothy is done upheaving the two biggest powers in Oz, Glinda sends her home and makes her think it was all a dream. She came down in a bubble, Doug. Hell, the Wicked Witch isn't even that evil. She just wants her sister's shoes to remember her by. The real world in the Matrix movies is just another layer of the Matrix, designed specifically to appeal to people unwilling to conform to the normal matrix. Humans in this outer matrix have confirmation of their belief that something was wrong, and get to indulge in the fantasy of being a heroic freedom fighter against a faceless evil machines, thus choosing to accept this false reality. The anomaly of the one is that he's capable of rejecting both realities, which is the reason why he had powers in the real world. Yeah, did Revolutions ever address this? I thought the cliffhanger ending of Reloaded was meant to reveal that the real world was just another matrix. Pokédex entries are written by young trainers. When a professor sends a bunch of 10-year-olds out into the world to document Pokémon, of course the research can't be expected to be professional in the least. This is how we end up with the creepy legends of ghost Pokémon that might have been passed around as playground rumors, or impossible facts like Macargo being hotter than the actual sun. There's no reason why out of all the Pokémon professors, one of them couldn't have revised their dex information and correct the tidbit about Pidgeot breaking the speed of light or Gardevoir creating black holes or Blaziken's jumping over 30-story buildings. It's likely they leave the kids to their own devices without bothering to fact-check, and kids, being kids, are going to exaggerate. Professor Oak just sent kids out on random errands so he could bang their moms. That the book Rory writes in the Gilmore Girls revival is the original show, that explains why the characters are so different from the show versus revival miniseries. She's looking back at the past with rose-colored glasses. I 100% believe the two men accompanying the woman in the original Blair Witch Project planned and successfully executed a plan to murder her while they were deep in the woods. Too many factors point to good old-fashioned murder than a supernatural occurrence. Event Horizon is a prequel to the Warhammer 40k universe. I have one of my own. Buffy's mother Joyce's brain aneurysm occurred indirectly because of Dawn. Not through magic or anything directly supernatural. But she was Dawn's mother and therefore she would have the most artificially created memories, conception, pregnancy, life, thoughts, fears, etc. This caused so much real physical change to her brain overnight, that it created real medical problems and killed her. This is never hinted at all in the show. Robb Stark died twice, first in his own body, and second in Grey Wind's. He had a chance to see Arya moments before his death,